you landed on this training, then you're probably interested in becoming financially free, or maybe you're interested in buying properties without using any of your own money, or to buy properties using a concept called lease options. We don't need a deposit, you don't need a mortgage. I know it sounds too good to be true. That's why I've created this training system to show you how to do this step by step. You're going to be really glad you're listening to this free training right now. And I call this training 5 Tips to Making Money in Real Estate, Controlling Everything but Owning Nothing. So make sure you have a pen and paper ready so you can take notes, because I'm going to be sharing lots of incredible tips. Pay close attention, because any one of those tips could literally change your life, and you absolutely don't want to miss it. Now I have a certain amount of time, about 30 minutes. I'm going to give you all I can in our time together. My number one goal here is to really help you succeed. So I'll give you all that I can while we're together, and I'll also show you, and a lot of you will be interested in this, so you can go further and I have some additional resources to show you. That's my promise to you. So let's get started. Now, for those of you who are already investors, you may be wondering, how can I increase the cash flow in my property portfolio? How can I maximize my rent so I'm getting paid every single month? The great thing is, if you're already a landlord, then you probably have some issues with challenges and tenants. Maybe they're not paying you on time. Maybe they're giving you lots of hassles. They do take up a lot of time, from experience. I know of a lot of you who own more than 20 properties. The key word is systemization. In this training, I'm actually going to show you how to acquire the property to start with, because for a lot of us, if you want to create what we call a multi-million-dollar portfolio, we need to have more than one house. For that house to give us money every single month, as it gives you money every single month, over time it's going to go up in value. I'm going to show you how you can acquire it without using any of your own money, without using any deposit, because if you've invested in property in the past, or you're renting at the moment, then you don't want to use a deposit to actually buy a house. If you're a first-time buyer, you're renting, you can use this to acquire a property to live in for yourself. If you're an investor, then you can increase your property portfolio without putting any of your own money into it. If you're working a job and you just want some extra money, well, I'll show you how to acquire that property so you can use that. You need to start that monetization process to make money for you every single month. In this video, we're going to concentrate on lease options. So let's get into this to show you how to work step by step. Why lease options is a must for anyone investing in property. You need to use these lease options. Let me tell you why. First of all, it's getting really, really hard to get financed right now. If you're getting mortgages to buy a house, then right now the mortgage lenders are actually refusing to lend people mortgages because they just don't have the money to lend. For some of us, we're saving up for a deposit. And the problem is with that, it takes too long. Right now, you need at least about 20 to 30% to actually buy a house. So if the average property is $100,000, you need to save up at least $30,000 to put towards a deposit. And also, investors who are buying houses to wait for the value to go up and then refinance, it just takes way too long. Maybe you're not from a particular country. I know a lot of people outside the U.S. who are investing in property are not from the U.S. There are places like Asia or Canada. So again, it's more difficult for them to actually get financed. If you're not from a particular country, if you're not from the U.S., for example, if you're watching this training from outside the U.S. and you want to invest in a property in the U.S., then it's great if you're not from the country, but you want to buy a property in that country. For example, in China, a lot of people are trying to buy property in the U.S. Unfortunately, there are a few rules and regulations they come up with that are stopping people from getting financing from owning the property. With lease options, you don't own it, you control it. Also, there's another reason as well. If you're transacting properties and you've already bought a house without using any of your own money, then you'll find out that for a lot of people, your aim is to buy houses about 20 to 30% of that price. If people aren't willing to sell their houses below market value, then what do? That's what BMV means, below market value. Below what the house is worth. Not everyone you speak to is going to want to sell a property at discount. For those of you who are buying properties using none of your own money and using these creative finance strategies, you have to buy the property at a discount to the market. As I said a second ago, there are limited creative finance strategies out there. So if you're trying to get property and you're using bridging finance or deposit down finance or these creative ways, it's getting more limited and it's getting harder. How do these lease options actually work? Well, before we get into how they work, why do you want to do it? First of all, an awful lot of us are watching this, maybe working in a job at the moment, and you want to replace your income. Maybe you want to make an extra $2, $3, $4, $5,000 a month without having to work. Because right now you're trading time for money. Every hour you work, you're making money every single hour. But if you get, let's just say, if something happens to you tomorrow, and you're no longer to work, then what happens is that you actually can't work for the money. You need something to work for you. Even if you're not working every single hour, that is the main reason to replace your income. Also, to build a retirement portfolio. Currently, myself, my business partner, we don't have a pension. Right now, pensions aren't doing so great at the moment. You want to create a retirement portfolio where, say, if you buy 10 houses, let's just say they're all worth $100,000. And in 20 years' time, you want those to go up in value to, say, $200,000. If you got 10 houses and you have 10 houses that gone up in 100 grand in value, then you just made $1 million worth of equity right there. You can sell it, you can remortgage, for all the time you have to believe that value over time. It's not 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it has to go up in value. Otherwise, you wouldn't have the property. Maybe you want to access lump sums of cash. For a lot of us right now, we may be equity rich, but cash poor. Once again, equity rich, but cash poor. Meaning we have a lot of property with equity in there, but every single month we're not getting enough. We may be getting $2, $3, $4, $5,000, and for some of us, that's not enough. If you want lump sums of cash, like $20,000 here, $30,000 here, $50,000 here, then using lease option strategies will do that for you. We can use an option strategy called assignment, and I'll go into that a little bit more detail on how the mechanics of that works so you can see how to implement them. Also as well, the reason why a lot of people want to do this, I'm assuming that you like to have more time. Right now, even if you're working, if you're self-employed at the moment, if you're probably working harder than when you were employed because you're the best person doing the job right now. For all of us, we like to have more time. Why do you want more time? So we can enjoy life more. So we can travel a lot more. So we can give back to society. I currently do talks to help people and give back to people. There comes a time when you've got the money, but after you got the money, it's about contributing and giving back. That's what this is all about. And number 5 is having the option to buy or not to buy. Let's just say, for example, something does happen to the real estate market. You want an option to actually pull out because right now, if you buy a house, you're committed to pay the mortgage for 20 to 30 years. If you have an option to buy, it means you have an option, which means you can buy or you cannot buy. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more on how that works. The first question is, how many houses do you actually need to replace your income? If you want to, let's just say the average salary is $2,000 or $3,000. Let's just go with $2,000. If each house makes you $200 every single month, so you're going to need 10 houses. And those 10 houses, you're going to make 10 times 200, which is $2,000. You only need 10 houses to make an extra $2,000 per month. I know some of you are thinking, well, that's gross income. We're talking gross income here. Obviously, if you want more, then you buy more houses. The problem with that is, if you're buying it, it's using traditional methods of deposit. You need a lot of $20,000 to $30,000 deposit to actually build up a portfolio. Number 2 is, how much do you want to retire? A lot of people say, I would be quite happy with $1 million worth of assets. Right now, I want to ask you this question. The question is, if you were to sell everything you had now and pay off your debt, would you still owe more, or would you be left with something? Most people, with all the debt they have at the moment, if they were to pay off all their debt, they would still be negative. That means assets-wise and financially, they're not worth anything. You have to have some assets under your belt because this is where true wealth is created. Assets. If you look at the Forbes list, a lot of people have assets. It's the assets that make them money. For example, Bill Gates. He's a multi-billionaire. He doesn't have $1 billion in the bank, or maybe he does now. He has a lot of this tied up in assets because the assets make more money for him. How much disposable income do you want? You got to ask yourself this question. What are your current living costs? How much are your mortgage costs? How much are your eating costs? If that's let's say $2,000, anything above that is disposable income. So you might want to travel the world. Instead of having 4 vacations a year, you might want to have 10 vacations a year. Maybe you're living in a 3-bedroom house. Maybe you want a 5-bedroom house. Maybe if you're driving a certain car, you might want to upgrade that car to a BMW, a Mercedes. Or if you're into supercars, you can have a supercar. Maybe you want to take 3 months off, and you want to go to an orphanage and you want to help build a school or whatever it is. You want to work at how much disposable income you actually need. How much more time do you want? The question people ask me is, Marty, how much time do I need to do this? My question to you is, how much longer are you going to carry on working at the current rate you're working? Because when you're working, whether in your job or you're self-employed, the more successful you become, the more responsibility you get. Yes, you get more money, but then it sucks up your time. Again, you're trading more time for more money. If you're working 8 hours a day at the moment, when I was working in the audiovisual industry, I was working 10 to 12 hours a day, and even working weekends and nights. You might say, well, I just like to, instead of working 5 days a week, I only want to work 2 days a week. Or instead of working 10 hours a day, I only want to work 2 hours a day. Instead of working for a whole year, you might say, I want to make my year's salary in 3 months so I can take the rest of the year off. I want to decide how much. Get the answer to these questions. If you're not writing this down, as I'm talking to you, grab yourself a piece of paper, grab your pen, and start jotting down some ideas and ask yourself these questions as I'm standing right in front of you. Where do you want to retire? Do you want to retire in Belize, in Asia, in Hawaii? And a lot of people go to Spain. A lot of things you want to do here is you want to be able to run the portfolio of properties from anywhere around the world. The biggest problem that I see people do is they have these properties. They start acquiring them. They use these strategies to buy with no money, and then what happens? They get sucked into the business. I don't even touch my portfolio anymore. Currently, as I'm recording this, I'm in Belize. All I see is money coming into my account, and everything else is taken care of. Using the power of lease options and using some systemization automation tools, it's a great way to work. I always call this, it's not a vacation, it's a workation, and that's pretty cool, by the way. How does lease options actually work? It's very simple. First of all, there are 2 parts to this. The first part is the lease. A lease is like another word for leases to rent. The lease actually controls the cash flow. There's a saying in lease options. The saying is to control everything and to control nothing. Control everything and to own nothing. When you talk about a lease, it controls the cash flow. The second part of the lease option is the option part. The option controls the price. Let me get into this in detail and show you an example of how this actually works. Before I do that, I want to tell you that the definition of what we give in lease options, and the definition is a lease option gives you the right, but not the obligation. It gives you the right, write this down. It gives you the right, but not the obligation to buy or sell the property. It's a very flexible tool. Let me give you an example. Let's just say that the market value for a house is $100,000. Let's just say the loan for the house is $100,000. So there's no equity in the property. Let's say that the repayment is $300. Wherever you're watching this from, let's just say that the rent is, get rented for about $500. What we do is, we take the lease and we lease the house on this loan. I control the mortgage payments. Instead of mortgage payments going out of the person who's selling the house, I say to them, well, instead of $300 coming out of your account, is it okay if that comes out of my account? All I'm doing is I'm taking over the person's mortgage payments. Then what I'm doing is I'm taking an option for the risk of taking the property, for the privilege. I take an option I have the right to buy that property at today's value. That means if I take an option out for anything from 5, 10, 15 years, one of our students, his name is Tyler, he's taken an option on the property 23 years. He's trained with us and he's learned all the strategies. He actually went to the homeowner and said, I'm going to control your property for 23 years. We have another student, her name is Christine. She actually took the loan of the property for 12 years. I've had people take over loans on the property for a lifetime of the mortgage on the property. You might think that's pretty crazy. If this is the time you've come across these options, but I'll tell you this. Our students are doing this every single day. This is one of the simplest lease option strategies that I'm teaching right now. There are so many of them, but this is the easiest and the quickest one to implement. How do you make money from this? I know you got a lot of questions right now. You're probably thinking, why would anyone do that? I'll talk about that in a second. Let me show you how you can make money from it. You take over the payments at $300 and you rent it out for $500. Your profit is $200. If you take over someone's mortgage, you have to go to the bank to get the mortgage. No, you're going to take over the seller's mortgage. You're going to be controlling their mortgage. You don't need to get a mortgage payment. You don't need to go to the bank to get a mortgage. Also, I'm taking over that property. I've now controlled the property, so I can now rent the property out. Have I had to put up a down payment? No. If we're doing this the normal way, you have to set up $20,000 to $30,000 of your own money to put into this property. It just takes too long. The profit on this, you make $200. That is the least part of it. The option, how do you make the money on the option? Say the market value is $100,000 and in 7 years' time the market value goes up to $130,000. At this point, the loan here is $100,000. All I do is, at any time between now and 7 years' time, I can actually sell the property for $130,000. Remember, I've taken an option at $100,000, so that means I sell it for $130,000. I pay the seller $100,000 as owed on the property, and what's left is mine. At this point, I can be a little more creative. I can be a little more advanced to make it a win-win situation for both of us. I can tell the seller, hey, you know what? The profit that I get from this is okay if I share the profit with you. I can do that as well. This is a very easy way to do it. Again, there's so many different strategies I'll talk about. That is the quickest, fastest way for you. Our students have gone out within 2 weeks, have actually bought or controlled a house using this strategy. If you do this right, you can even have an option, have an over the option period. Say you control the property for over 23 years. There's another option strategy where at the end of the option term, on certain type of properties, that each property that you get option will be mortgage free. That's pretty cool. It's a little bit more of an advanced technique. Another strategy is rent to buy. This is a great strategy for landlords. If you already own, let's say 5, 10, 15 houses right now, and they're all making you a certain cash flow, rent to buy, if you do this properly, imagine all those 10 tenants that you have right now. Imagine all of them giving you $5,000 deposit just to have an option to rent and buy at the same time. $10 times 5, that's $50,000 from thin air. You can do this. All of our students are doing this right now. Again, rent to buy. If you want to increase the cash flow, let's say you're making an average $5,000 from all of your property portfolio. What if I said that just to have an option to rent and buy at the same time, people will pay you a premium on top of what the house is worth? Another strategy, well, here's an example. I actually had a tenant turn my house into a crack house. Almost $30,000 worth of damage. And that's how much money I would have to spend. It would take at least three months to fix it up. I had a tenant come in there and pay me above the market rent just so they could fix up my house. That comes under the third strategy. I call them fix and flip strategies. If you're a landlord and you bought the property that you wish you never bought, is a great strategy. If you're a landlord and you're already renting the property and people have messed up your property, then unfortunately it's going to come to a point where you're going to have to pay that money or I have to get someone to fix it up for me. That's another strategy as well. fix them up properties. People will come in there, fix your house up for free, and pay you above market rent. It's a great strategy. If you're completely new to real estate, maybe you're renting at the moment, this is a great way to get into your first house and live in your first house using lease options without having to put a deposit down or get a mortgage. Strategy number 4, there's so many different strategies. I think there are about maybe 34, 35 different option strategies. I'm just giving you the top 5 that are easy to implement. Strategy number 4 is an option type assignment, meaning I could option a house at, say, if the house is worth $100,000, I might option it at $80,000, and I could sell the option. That piece of paper, that contract to someone for $90,000. That house is worth $100,000. Write this down. I option for $80 and I sign for $90. I make $10,000 in the process. A really fast strategy. If you're in a job at the moment, you want to transition into real estate investing. You want to earn some money fast. Earn some cash and go on to real estate investing full time. This is a great way to get started. Number 5 is upside down houses. This again is one of Virginia's main strategies that she uses. If you're investing right now, you may have come across a house where the property is worth less than what is owed on the property. Let's say the property is worth $100,000, but the seller owes $110,000. How would this be? You get some people who are in situations where they borrow a mortgage, they can't pay it. Their arrears build up. They want to sell it, and there's a penalty to sell. So it's worth, if they sold it, they have to pay the money to the bank to actually get rid of the mortgage. This is a great way to find these types of sellers who are in these situations. And by doing this, I can take an option strategy. Obviously, if it's in a negative equity, I would take a longer strategy, 10 to 15 years, rather than being 7 years in order for that price to increase. Again, that's another great strategy. There's so many different things I just don't have to get into. I just don't have time to get into right now. I've given the quickest, simplest ones in which the option to take over someone's mortgage and then to rent it out. That's all you got to do. Very, very simple. A quick way to build cash flow, and you can get started pretty quick in it. You're probably wondering, well, who, Marty, on earth would do this? Well, you're absolutely right. When I first started, the question was, why would anyone do this? Why don't they just rent it out themselves? These are all valid questions. First of all, for every seller, for every person who's selling the house, there's a seller. For every seller, they have a reason for selling the property. As investors and smart investors, we have to find out whether the reason is urgent or is not urgent. The reason why most people don't want to rent it out is because the typical people we deal with are people who have been divorced, they just lost their job, they don't want the stress, they're moving, they don't want to have to rent a house. They don't even like giving a house to a management agent because they don't have the income coming in. Maybe they've lost their job. If the tenant doesn't pay for 3 months, they can't sustain that mortgage. They can't pay that mortgage. To get tenants out of your house, it can take some time. These are a few reasons, again, I don't have time to get into in detail, but I just thought that I would create this video for you, just so you can see the big picture. This is one of the most flexible tools that you can use. It is so flexible that you can literally make any deal happen. You can buy a house at the market value, and you can still make money. You can give the seller what they want and still make money. I have students who are in Monterey, California, people who don't want to sell. So what they do is they take the lease on the property, but they don't take an option. There's so many different strategies, and why would they do that? Some, you can rent out all the rooms, and you can make a lot of money. You can have something called a lease option HMO, which is a house of multiple occupation, which is again another advanced strategy. If that's something that you're interested in, you can sign up for our program, the Ultimate Lease Option Money Making Machine, because we actually get into this in a lot more detail. Now, this isn't meditate and money will just manifest to you. This is not for you if you believe that you can succeed without doing any work. Believe me, you will be working. And quite frankly, this is not for you. This is going to take money off your table. It will cause tremendous financial hardship. We don't want you to get it. And when you act now, I have everything included in this ultimate lease option money making machine. It'll be sent to you, and this is what you'll get. You get an online resource site. You log in. You have easy access. You get to download all of these materials. That's easily worth $400 or more. You'll get the audios and transcriptions. You'll pop it in the CD player on your way to work or a drive around town. The retail value for that's $300, and you'll also be able to download and play the audios from off your computer. You get all the contracts. We pay the lawyers $350 per hour to drop these contracts. You have access to every single contract we use in online format, on CD, and in printed form. That's a $700 value. You get 3 training videos to walk you through the ultimate lease option money making machine process, the quantum leap your success. Retail value for that's $500. You get printed versions of everything. You're going to get a CD in the mail. You're going to get transcripts. You're going to get all that stuff in printed form so you can keep. You can have it as well. That's a $797 value. With all these in hand, I'll have a complete Power Pack toolkit of instruction templates and examples. More than enough to overwhelm the competition, but that's not all. You get another killer bonus. 1 month access to the heart-to-heart property analysis. We provide amazing details on each property, complete property characteristics, including beds, baths, square footage, lot size, use codes, pool, stories, legal description, and more. Owner name and address, how much have they paid, the down payment, the length of ownership, tax assessment, tax rate. Excuse me. It's a $55 value. But that's not all. Because you're taking action, don't forget you'll get lead generation school. It teaches you how to find the perfect leads for your business and know exactly how to get them responding to your offers. The retail value for that's $297. You can download that. You get it shipped in the mail. You get the audios as well. All together, the ultimate lease option money making machine. All the bonuses total value of about $3,049. But by acting now, before Tuesday, December 1st, 2015, you get everything for just $597. Now, I promised earlier that I would give you real information. I've done that. And now, after hearing everything that we talked about, you might say, Marty, I love what you're talking about, but how can I get this result quickly and easily? Well, you have some options. You either do 2 monthly payments of $310. You pay $310 today, and you build the remaining through 10 and 30 days apart from each other. Or you can do this one-time investment of $597. Either way, you'll get the big box containing everything right away. And imagine how you feel when you no longer have to deal with being so busy making a living, you can't take time to make any real money. The lack of credit, the fear of not knowing how or where to get the money and buy and sell houses. Imagine what it would be like to put each and every one of these challenges into pass where they belong. Well, you don't have to imagine any longer. Sign up now for the Ultimate Lease Option Money Making Machine program. You can experience the incredible feeling of having more cash flow, more time to spend with the people you love, and not having to worry about money. And to remove all the risks to you, if at any time during the first 60 days after reviewing and receiving a copy of the Ultimate Lease Option Money Making Machine, you honestly believe you've made a mistake, or you're disappointed, you receive a 100% refund. Anyway, take action on what you discovered today. Just decide to make it happen. Thank you so much, guys. Once again, I'm Marty, and I hope to see you on the program.